Hey, this is NorbCam coming at you. Today, I'm honored to be joined by former Seahawks running back Curt Warner and his wife Anna to talk about football, family, and living with autism. Curt was a Seahawks running back from 1983 to 1989. He was a three-time Pro Bowler, three-time second-team All-Pro, two times AFC Offensive Player of the Year, helped lead the Seahawks to their first ever playoff win and a trip to the AFC Championship, and was inducted into the Seahawks Ring of Honor. Curt and Anna have 4 children, Jonathan, Isabella, and their twin sons Christian and Austin, who suffer from severe autism. Curt and Anna had struggled silently for years raising a family with autistic twins. In 2018, they published their book, The Warner Boys, a personal memoir about their fight to keep their family together against all odds. Now, there is new hope for their boys to live more independent lives, but they'll need our help for the dream to come true. Curt and Anna, welcome and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you for the invite. We appreciate it.
You had a very eventful first year with the Seahawks. You brought them to their first playoff win, almost to the Super Bowl, make it to the AFC Championship. I want to ask you, what are some of your fond memories of that magical first season that you had here in Seattle with the Seahawks?
Well, you know what? It was interesting from day one because I was a rookie. And as a rookie, you are, viewed by your peers as a rookie. And that entails a number of things that you have to deal with. But I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to play for a guy by the name of Chuck Knox, who was more of a ground center kind of guy. They called him Ground Chuck. He brought some guys in that could play. And we had a lot of talent, more talent than I thought we had coming in play. But we were able to put it together and win some games. And the culture changed. And I think that was the biggest thing, is that the culture changed. The guys believed that they could win. And then we were able to put it together and get into the playoffs and make a run at it. So it was a lot of fun from that perspective.
You played with guys like Dave Krieg, Steve Largent, Kenny Easley. You're among some of those legendary players that a lot of us 12s from way back in the day still think fondly of. What was it like playing with those guys? And are you still friends with them today?
They were all very professional with what they and how they prepared for the football games. I'm still friends with Dave and Kenny and Steve and Jacob Green, who's also a member of the Ring of Honor. So no, we're still close. A lot of fond memories, and played with some great football players. Very respectful of how they did their job. And
on the field and off.
On the field and off the field.
Is there any particular game or moment or play that really stands out above the rest?
Yeah, Kansas City. In Kansas City, first touch of the football, I break one for about 60 yards. But let me tell you something. It was 105 on the turf. And it was probably the hottest game I have ever been a part of. And I remember after that run, I couldn't breathe for the rest of the game. I was just exhausted. It took everything out of me. In the playoffs down in Miami, there were a number of plays that stood out. The deep ball down to Steve, the back and forth between the games or that particular game, and then being able to score the winning touchdown was a great thrill for us and for me.
I know that you talk about in your book how difficult it was to watch your husband play this game. What was it like? I don't think we hear that much from, we as fans watch it and we love all the hitting and the more physical, the better, but we don't get to hear from the wife's perspective, whose husband is out there putting his life on the line with every play and every hit that they take. And we had seen Curt have the knee injury and overcome that. So what was it like for you to watch your husband day in, day out during the season, taking the beating that he did for all those years with the Seahawks?
Every hit, you just hope that you get up and that you'll be okay. So you just kind of hold your breath, and then after he gets up and just like, okay. But I remember one time we went out to dinner, and his hands, he had cuts all over his hands. His face was bruised, but he was just like, no, I'm okay. But it's intense and to see your husband or your boyfriend or, in that shape.
You had a really rough start to 84 when you had the knee injury. And back then, it's not like today where ACLs, they can do miracles now with ACL injuries and people come back quicker than they ever have before. But back then, as a running back, that could have meant the end of your career. But somehow you managed to not only come back, but had a very productive career after that. In fact, you were the comeback player of the year, if I recall, from Sports Illustrated. What was it like experiencing that injury, and how did you fight back from that?
Well, first of all, you got to have the right guy to get it done. We had a gentleman by the name of Dr. Peter Scranton, and he was an orthopedic surgeon, and he basically went in and fixed it. And he told me how he fixed it, but I could not repeat it with regards to what the procedure was and how he went about doing it. But he said, "Curt, your knee is fixed. It is ready to go. What I need you to do is go in and rehab and get ready." And I spent a lot of time with Jimmy, and spent a lot of time with John Kasich, and they were able to to keep me moving in the right direction. And it was a lot of time rehabbing, probably about 8 hours a day. I was at the facility rehabbing, and then I was fortunate enough to get back on track and get out there and get things going again.
From your perspective, what's the difference like between playing football in the 80s when you did play to what the game has evolved to now? What's
that's a
different?
Good question. They're bigger. All across the line, the linemen are bigger. The defensive guys, tackles are bigger. Everyone is just probably 20 pounds, probably heavier, maybe even more when it comes to the linemen. But I think that as far as the intensity is concerned, it's pretty much the same when it comes to intensity. There are a few more things with regards to the game today that you could get away with, as far as coming across the middle and hitting, guys. That was a given. I mean, it was more physical, meaning that you could get hit and get hit hard. Whereas today they would call a penalty on you for what would be for a receiver hitting a defenseless receiver coming across the middle. Well, back then that was your free game, and most people didn't go across the middle. Why?
Yeah, they called it the hospital. They call it a hospital pass. If a quarterback throws that play that leaves the receiver open in the middle for open season target practice, they call that a hospital pass. But yeah, you don't really see that anymore. The other big difference too for you is that you played on that Kingdom. While the Kingdom was a lively place, one of the loudest venues around, but that surface, boy, with the AstroTurf was basically carpet on concrete. They obviously have done away with that a long time ago, but you had to play on that. Obviously, was a big part as to what made so rough on your knees. But what was it like playing on that? Because people don't play on it anymore. What was it like?
It's like playing on concrete, basically. I had 6 surgeries. 1 on the right knee, major surgery. Then I had the right knee scoped, and then I had ankle issues because of the bone spurs, because of the way I ran. And then that carpet, the concrete just doesn't give. That's unfortunate because there are a lot of guys whose career got cut short because of the impact of the turf. And that was everywhere. Concrete and AstroTurf. But the fields today are a lot nicer with regards to the somewhat grass and I don't know what they call it, but those little pellets that they put in there.
The field turf.
Field turf. It's called field turf. Yeah. And I've been down there, and it's not bad to play on. It's very similar to grass, meaning that when you are falling, you've got some protection, you've got a little cushion, versus 30 years ago when you're just playing on and something had to give. If you're playing on that concrete, something's got to give, and you're going to get hurt, and that's what happens.
Well, and you consider all of that considered, and with the injuries, you still played 7 seasons with the Seahawks, and then finished your career 1 year with the Rams. So, do you think you would have played longer if you could have been playing in today's NFL? Better surfaces, a little bit better technology?
I think so. I really do. I honestly believe that I would have had less injuries, less surgical injuries. And playing on something that gives a little bit more and a little bit softer. I think so. I would like to think so, but you never know. You just never know.
So in 90, you played your final year with the Rams. And what was it like when you were released by the Seahawks, and then eventually when you faced the reality that you decided to retire from the NFL? What was that like for you?
Well, actually, it was free agency that just came into play, and I ended up leaving. And it's probably one of the bigger regrets leaving, because I left because I didn't feel the love from the organization, and maybe it was just me and my ego, because as a guy, as a football player, you think that your career never ends, and you don't think that you're going to deteriorate to a certain degree, meaning that you're going to lose a step here and there, and you're the last one to realize that. And it probably takes 2 or 3, 4 years outside of the NFL that you go, okay, maybe at that particular time I may not have been as good as I thought I was. So there's just some realities you have to come to grips with, and I did. So but I did what I did, and but I think I've had a pretty good career.
What was that like for you, Anna? I'm sure you were by his side as he had to make these tough decisions. What was it like for you to be going through that with him, leaving Seattle and eventually his retirement from the NFL?
I couldn't understand the emotional part of the whole thing, because I was not I was not with him through the whole career. So it was more towards the end when I met Curt. Yeah. So it was just, to me, it was just like, wherever he goes, I'm going with him. Home is wherever he is. So I was fine, and I was just trying to be there for him and support him. Yeah. And just make sure that he had time to just heal emotionally, because it was hard to say goodbye. Well,
you never think, as a young, athletic kind of guy, that it's not going to come to that realization that at some point you don't retire, you get fired. Your services are no longer needed, and that's a form of of retirement. But they moved on. You moved on, and it's time to go find something else to do. And I think that was tough, because the ego doesn't allow you to come to grips with that for quite some time until you get out of it, and then at some point in life, you go, okay, it's over.
But I think it is also family. It was his family for 7 years.
Yeah, it's family.
And it's just, I know to the organization, it's more business, but, for the player, I mean, he was you're invested. You're with the guys, you're with a group of guys, and all of a sudden one day you're not. Yeah.
And then you got to go figure out, okay. And then the relationships are not the same, because they're playing and you're not playing, and vice versa. So relationships do change. But over time, you rekindle those relationships, and you have conversations, and you remember the good things. You remember the fun.
And we knew that Seattle was where we wanted to be. We wanted to have our family in Seattle. And so it was just a matter of, okay, we're going to go to California, but we'll come back.
Yeah.
We're going to come back.
It seems like a lot of players who've come to Seattle to play end up staying here. I guess it just speaks to the community that we have here. And obviously you saw that too and decided of all the places you could have lived anywhere you wanted to, but you decided to make your home here in Seattle. What is it about Seattle that makes it so appealing to stay here and raise a family here?
Well, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful city.
Pacific Northwest is just gorgeous.
And the people are just very personable, and nice,
friendly,
and friendly. Yes, so
very accepting, and
So it wasn't hard. Once you live here and you go somewhere else, you go back and forth. To Seattle, you realize it's a wonderful city to live in, a great city, beautiful city. Yeah. So that's why we're here. It's still in the Great Northwest.
Yeah.
So you eventually were inducted into the Seahawks Ring of Honor. What was that like for you? Because you kind of said at the end you weren't feeling the love, so it sounds like you didn't end on the best of notes leaving. But then eventually you come back, you get inducted into the Ring of Honor. So what was that like to kind of have that come back to you that way?
Well, I think I appreciate it more now than even at the time when it did happen. But I was very appreciative that they considered me to be a part of the Ring of Honor. And I think every year after that 94 induction, I've come to appreciate it even more so, and what it means for what I've done and for the body of work that I've done. So I'm appreciative on that front.
And I think we feel more as part of the Seahawks family.
Oh, yeah, the Seahawks family.
They include us, and we're very thankful for that.
But it took a little while to kind of get through that, and you have to kind of work through it, and the personal side of it, you got to let it go, move on, and just be thankful for all of the opportunities that I've had, and to be able to play the great game of football, and to be a part of a great organization. But it took some while to figure that out and to let things go.
Do you still follow the Seahawks now? Are you still a fan of the Seahawks? Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
What do you think? What do you think of the what the team has evolved into now? Now that we're in 2021, there's been a lot of controversy about Russell Wilson and things like that. What do you think about the organization in general? We're pretty spoiled up here to have a team that, when you go back to the days you played, you were the first on that team to have brought a playoff game to Seattle. And now we get one every year, and we still have fans upset about what's going on because unless you win a Super Bowl, it's like, oh, they didn't get it done. So I think the fans sometimes lose perspective on how good they have it really here. But, what's your take on this team that we have here in 2021?
Well, when you win a Super Bowl and you contend for Super Bowls, that's what's expected every year. If you get to the playoffs, you're expected to get to the playoffs, and you're expected to go deep into the playoffs. So the expectation level is extremely high. And unfortunately, the NFL does not reward you for having a good season. As a matter of fact, they tend to punish you for having a great season because you don't get the early picks, you get the later picks. The talent usually goes early versus late. Not that you won't be able to find someone who's capable of playing and playing extremely well, but if you're doing that year in and year out, then what tends to happen is that the ability and the talent seems to be shifted around the league. And that's the beauty of the game, is that the NFL allows teams that are not very good to replenish their cycles and replenish with better football players. They got a great formula. It's just, it can drive you crazy if you're a player and if you're fans, because at some point, everything is going to balance out again. And you may be for 2 or 3 years at the top. And I think Pete Carroll's done a great job and his coaching staff as far as keeping the Seahawks relevant and keeping them in the hunt. You never think the Seahawks won't win. It doesn't matter. It does not matter who they're playing against. They're always in a game, and they're always going to be playing at such a level that they could win the football game.
Like you said, it's very hard to maintain that year in, year out, given the fact that it's working against you from a draft standpoint. So, yeah, I think we all as Seahawks fans have to appreciate that. Is there a running back that you look at now, whether on the Seahawks or around the league, that you kind of look at and go, wow, I really like this guy. This guy is really good. Is there a player that you admire as from a running back standpoint?
Yeah, not really. I tend to, I tend to watch the quarterback play more so than I watch the running back play. And the reason being is because it's a quarterback-driven league.
Sure.
Period. End of discussion. And I think when I was playing, it was more balanced, meaning that you had a fullback, you had a tailback, and you had a tight end, and you sometimes double tight end, and you play the running game was a part of the offense, more of a part of the offense. And it's just changed so much that you tend to watch the quarterback and the receiver. No offense to the running backs, because there's still some guys out there can play fairly well, but the game has changed.
So is there a quarterback that you particularly admire or like to watch their game?
Russell Wilson. I like watching him play. What's the kid from Kansas City? Mahomes.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes.
I mean, he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's always Tom Brady. Tom Brady's always fun to watch.
Yeah.
Although my wife is not a big Patriots fan. And I'm not a big Patriots fan.
Well, he's not with, he's with Tampa Bay, but it's just.
I think a lot of Seahawks fans can relate to that. But none of us are real Tom Brady fans. I mean, he does represent one of the teams that has one of the greatest heartbreak moments for us. So
the last minute.
Yeah. We won't talk.
I tend to watch, those guys, and that's kind of that's how the game has evolved. It's a different game. Now, maybe at some point somebody will come up with an idea that, hey, maybe we should put a fullback in there and a running back in there and maybe change the game a little bit. But that's just not happening anytime soon, I don't think, because it's evolved.
There's a couple teams that still use it, but not a lot. Yeah, San Francisco, Seattle was using one for a while, but we'll see. Next year it's going to be a whole different system, and maybe we'll see a whole nother evolution of the way the offense is run, but we'll look forward to seeing what that looks like.
But I would say at the same time, you still got to have a good running game.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have guys who can run the football, but it's just not as much of an emphasis on it as there was back 30 years ago.
Yeah. Although many will say that, well, Pete Carroll's stuck in the old days. He's an old school guy who wants to keep running the football, which is kind of like what you're saying. So I think he's a little bit of the exception to the rule, although they do have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So it'll be fun to see how they balance that out next year. To watch the other interview segments of Curt and Anna about how they met, their battle with autism, and the exciting new opportunities for their autistic twins, click the videos on the screen. Thanks for watching.